Hi guys, this is Brooke and this is my second language acquisition model project. Second language acquisition is like a box of chocolates. You never quite know what you're going to get. See these delicious chocolates? They're all so different. They're different shapes, they're different sizes, they have different fillings. This reminds me of how our students are so different. Each comes from a different culture with different belief system and of course different native languages. Based on the fact that all students have varied experiences, second language acquisition processes also vary from student to student. Chocolate has some similar characteristics, right? It's fatty, it's delicious, it might be sugary. Second language acquisition processes also have research-based similarities. I'm going to go into those similarities in just a moment. But just remember that just the way each piece of chocolate is different, which is evidenced by the way it looks, each student is different. And so what works for one student won't necessarily work for another student. One of the factors that plays into second language acquisition is neurophysiological capacity. And this capacity can be really hard for a teacher to gauge because it's basically what takes place in the student's brain. Indicators can be found in the student's ability in their native language. The first language literacy skills tend to play into the neurophysiological capacity. We might look at students' educational background in their native country, their school experiences, and in my case, since I work with adults, maybe even their job experiences and abilities. Something else that comes into play when it comes to neurophysiological capacity is aptitude. Aptitude refers to the ability of people to learn a subject easily and quickly. Some people just have a great aptitude for learning languages, and others don't as much. According to Brown Larson Hall, there are 4 factors that come into play whenever we look at aptitude. The first one is phonemic coding ability, and this is basically sound symbol association, the ability to spell well, so forth. The second is grammatical sensitivity. The third is inductive language learning ability. This is when we notice patterns and relationships between items and objects. And the fourth is simply rote learning ability. This is the ability to learn and memorize lists quickly. According to Ganchow, aptitude in the first language is the most important factor in determining the ability in a second language. The other factor that I feel like also goes into this same category is age. So we know that students who are older or younger typically learn English at about the same rate. Actually, students who are older may learn language at a faster rate. However, children are more likely to have a more native-like sound. So if we look at our first factor, it is neurophysiological capacity. Our next factor that I'm going to talk about is motivation. And motivation simply refers to the desire to become a part of a second language speech community. And this is considered integrative motivation. In my opinion, integrative motivation is the greater of the 2 types of motivation because it's so necessary for so many language learners to have this integrative motivation in order to assimilate into the culture in which they are living. Another type of motivation is explicit motivation, and we probably all know what this is. Explicit motivation is one in which the students are motivated to learn a language simply because of maybe a job or a grade, some sort of outward motivation. According to Garner's socio-educational model, motivation is the factor in determining second language acquisition. So our fourth factor in second language acquisition, this chocolate is much different than all the rest. The third factor we are looking at is affect. Affect refers to emotions, feelings, and mood. According to Williams et al., reduction in anxiety actually leads to better acquisition. And we can also look at the affective filter model. And according to this model, in order for the acquirer to be able to accept input, the affective filter needs to go down. If a student's anxious or worried or afraid about something, then the filter goes up and the rate of input goes down. So students aren't able to learn at as quick of a rate. So that affect is so important. That classroom community is so important whenever it comes to second language acquisition. The next factor for second language acquisition is comprehensible input. And this model is written by Creation, and according to him, teaching at any level of difficulty isn't sufficient. It's not enough. Students don't just need input, they need comprehensible input. In other words, the curriculum that you teach must be at the student's current level with interactions and opportunities that challenge them just beyond what they already know. So if the material feels too out of reach and the student feels like he can't do it, he might actually shut down and have trouble engaging with the lesson. So we want to make sure that the students feel motivated to learn, they have information that they understand and they know what to do with it, but it's just a little bit challenging, just one level beyond what they already are familiar with. And this will help the rate of second language acquisition progress to the actual next level of learning. Whenever it comes to comprehensible input, I also think that feedback is really important. Feedback is a part of input, in my opinion, and feedback helps the students to adjust what they are learning and adjust what they are understanding so that they are accurately understanding the material that they are being taught. Quality instruction of both explicit and implicit material leads to a faster rate of language acquisition. So our fifth factor in second language acquisition is output. And output is when learners produce a specific type of language through deliberate practice. As far as output, I also think that interaction is a form of output. And interaction is a connection between output and input, and this is opportunities to practice the language. Sometimes this might be in real world situations, and this might also include interaction with native speakers of the language that we're trying to learn. So those are the 5 key factors in second language acquisition. However, we also have some factors that can increase the rate with which students are learning the language. And so let's look at a few more of these chocolates to see how these beneficial conditions for language acquisition are different. However, they all contribute to second language acquisition. So the first condition that I would like to talk about is the relatedness of the native and the new language. So if the native language is alphabetic and the new language is also alphabetic, students tend to acquire the language at a faster rate. Just like a lot of students who speak Portuguese also can speak and understand Spanish somewhat. First, language and literacy skills, educational and background experiences all go into this beneficial condition. The next beneficial condition is cultural knowledge and the ability to read social situations. The third beneficial condition is personality. We know that we all have students that are, some students are outgoing and some students are a little bit more reserved. For outgoing students, they tend to be willing to take more risks. Maybe they're impulsive and they'll try new things. And they do better during interaction types of activities and learning experiences. However, our students that are more reserved, maybe they're noticers, they pay more attention, and they might tend to do better during individual type of learning opportunities like writing and grammatical situations where they really have to learn rules and so forth. The next beneficial condition is interaction and access. And when I say this, I am referring to access to competent speakers of the new language, immersion, if you will. If the students are actually immersed in the language and they're speaking the language that they are learning at home, at school, in social situations, and they have access to other students or other speakers who speak the language well, the rate of second language acquisition is really speeded up quite a bit. And the last beneficial condition is purpose. Students need a purpose for the language that they're speaking. If it's just a class and they're just speaking that language for the class 30 minutes a day, they're probably not going to acquire the language that quickly. However, if they have a purpose, like they want to learn the language for cultural contexts, they want to be able to participate in groups and clubs, they want to be able to communicate with their friends, or perhaps they need it for their job, then they have a greater reason to learn the language, and they tend to actually be able to learn the language a little bit faster. So in conclusion, second language acquisition is like a box of chocolates. You never quite know what you're going to get. When you bite into the chocolate, it might be a feeling that you are really not expecting. However, it might be very, very delicious. Just like you get a student who maybe he or she is not what you're expecting. He doesn't have the background information or the educational experiences that maybe you thought. However, if you take into account that each student is different and each student learns a language in a different way, and you partner that with research-based strategies that you know support second language acquisition, then our learners will really grow and they will learn at a much faster rate than if we don't include some of those very important factors. So in conclusion, what we want to do is we want to monitor the instruction of each student and provide the appropriate differentiation so that the individual learner's needs are being met. So now I'm going to go eat my chocolate. Bye-bye.